I still remember the sound of the wine glass hitting the side of my plate, the clink sharper than the insults that followed. The dining room was filled with laughter that wasn't mine, the kind of laughter that stings more than it entertains. She's just a waitress. Why is she even at the table? My older brother Ethan said, his voice casual, like he was stating a fact. He leaned back in his seat, arm draped arrogantly over the back of his chair, wearing his Princeton sweatshirt like it was armor. Mom let out a sharp laugh and shook her head. She thinks she's one of us. That's adorable. Everyone laughed again. Everyone except me. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us. What would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I didn't flinch, didn't blink. I didn't even look up from the napkin I was folding and unfolding on my lap. That's what they expected. A reaction, a crack in my pride, and I wasn't going to give it to them. I just smiled. Small, quiet, dangerous. Because I knew something they didn't, and that knowledge was seconds away from pulling up in a black limousine. The dining room was glowing with crystal chandeliers and fake warmth. The air smelled like rosemary lamb, money, and cruelty. It always did when I came back here. Dad sat at the head of the table, swirling his scotch and acting like he wasn't hearing every word. But his silence was louder than anything Ethan said. This wasn't the first time they looked down on me. Not even close. After I dropped out of business school and started waitressing full-time to pay off debt, they acted like I'd turned into some feral creature from outside the gate. But they never asked why I left school. They never asked how I was doing. They just saw the apron, not the fire behind it. Hope the tips were good this week, Natalie, my cousin Lauren added with a little smirk. She popped a grape in her mouth like she'd just made the joke of the year. I leaned back in my chair slowly. Calm. I didn't even look at her. I looked at the door. And right on cue, headlights. Dad's estate sat on a hill, the kind of place that looked like it was designed for magazine covers and whispered scandals. So when you heard tires against gravel that late in the evening, you knew someone important was arriving. I folded my napkin neatly and set it down. Excuse me, I said softly, standing up. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Running off to check a table? No. I looked at him fully for the first time. To open the door. And I did. I walked through the long hallway, past the polished art that felt like it was staring at me, down the stone steps and onto the driveway. The limo was sleek and silent. It didn't hum. It purred. The driver stepped out first and opened the door. And then he stepped out. Noah Reed. Tall. Composed. In a dark charcoal suit that probably cost more than Mom's antique china set. His presence alone could silence a boardroom, or in this case, a family dinner. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me and smiled like I was his entire world. Natalie, he said, his voice warm, low, and grounded. Sorry I'm late. It's perfect timing, I whispered, my eyes never leaving his. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small black box, and slipped it back in just as quickly. Then he took my hand, and we walked inside together. The moment we entered the dining room, the room froze. Forks paused mid-air. Glasses were halfway to lips. Mom's expression twisted from confusion to disbelief. Ethan dropped his smirk. Even Lauren blinked like someone had pulled the curtain back on a lie. I could feel every pair of eyes lock onto us, onto him, and then onto me. Noah leaned slightly toward me and whispered, "Is this the moment?" I nodded. "It's the moment." He stepped forward, straightened his jacket, and addressed the room with the calm control of a man who owned his world. "Good evening. Sorry to interrupt dinner. I just couldn't wait to see Natalie." Ethan scoffed. Who the hell are you? Noah smiled gently. Noah Reed. There was silence. Dead, brutal silence. Because that name carried weight. Reed Innovations. Reed Aerospace. One of the youngest, most private billionaires in the country. The kind of man who didn't show up anywhere uninvited, and definitely not at family dinners for just a waitress. Mom's lips parted like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. I didn't realize Natalie's family was so... Noah paused, glancing around. Curious about her life. Dad cleared his throat, finally standing. You're Noah Reed? I am. And you're dating my daughter? I'm in love with her. I didn't even react, because I knew what came next would break them. But she's... Ethan started but stopped himself. A waitress? Noah finished, looking straight at him. She was, when I met her. Wait, you met at the restaurant? Lauren gasped. Noah nodded. She was helping a crying kid calm down in the corner booth while still managing 3 other tables. I watched her handle that chaos with grace, patience, and kindness. That night, I came back just to thank her. The next day, I left a note with a phone number. He turned toward me again. Best decision I've ever made. And for the first time, I spoke. Not to them, but to him. Want to stay for dinner? He smiled. Not unless we're treated like we belong. Silence again. Until Mom finally broke it, her voice trembling. Of course, dear. Of course you're welcome. But I didn't move. I turned to them all, one by one. I was never the disappointment, I said softly. You just didn't understand who I was. Noah held out his hand again. And this time, I didn't just take it. I walked out with it. And behind me, I left their silence. But that was just the beginning. The ride back from that dinner was dead quiet for the first few minutes. Noah didn't say much. He held my hand like it was something fragile, but not because I was weak. Because he knew exactly how much I'd held inside that whole evening. I should have spoken up earlier, he finally said, eyes fixed on the road ahead. I saw the look in your mom's eyes. That wasn't judgment. That was cruelty. I know, I whispered. You okay? I nodded. I've been through worse, but tonight was different. It didn't hurt me, it embarrassed them. He smiled faintly. Good. Because they deserved it. I exhaled slowly, the weight of years lifting off me inch by inch. That dinner wasn't just about the insults. It was about every time they ignored my efforts, every birthday forgotten, every eye roll when I mentioned work, every snide, backhanded comment at every family event. That was the last time I'd ever sit at their table on their terms. When we got back to Noah's penthouse, I stepped out of the limo and stared up at the building. Floor-to-ceiling glass, a rooftop garden, and a private elevator. The kind of place they said girls like me would never walk into, unless we were delivering food. Inside, everything smelled like cedarwood and fresh linen. It wasn't flashy. It was calm, grounded, like him. I kicked off my heels, sat down on the leather sofa, and curled up without a word. Want tea? He asked. I nodded. He came back with 2 mugs, placed mine gently in front of me, and sat beside me, a respectful distance away. You held back tonight, he said after a moment. I had to, I replied. I wanted to scream, but I didn't want them to think they got to me, and I didn't want to ruin my makeup. Noah laughed softly. That's honestly terrifying. You stayed that calm while holding all that in? I turned toward him. You saw what they did. He nodded. Yeah, and I saw how you didn't flinch. That's strength. I didn't want to be the angry one, I muttered. They always want to paint me like that. Like, I'm ungrateful, bitter, defensive. But tonight, I wanted them to see grace, quiet strength, let them feel small. You didn't just make them feel small, he said, placing his mug down. You made them irrelevant. I looked at him, really looked at him. Not for the money, not for the name, but for the way he looked at me. Like I wasn't just someone who'd been hurt, but someone worth protecting, worth standing next to. You didn't have to come tonight, I said quietly. I had to, he said, because you've never asked for anything, and I know what it feels like to stand in a room where you're expected to shrink. That hit something deep. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was safe. Then Noah added, You're not done with them, are you? I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? They're going to try to win you back. They always do. The moment they realize who you're with, they'll pretend tonight never happened. My smile returned, but colder this time. Good. Let them. I have a few surprises left. Noah leaned back and just nodded, proud. And that night, as I lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, I knew. I wasn't going to walk away quietly. I was going to make sure the next time they saw me, they'd never forget it. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls. One from Ethan, one from Mom, and one from an unknown number I didn't recognize. But I had a feeling it was Dad. I didn't call any of them back. Instead, I opened the curtains and stood in Noah's penthouse looking out over the city, barefoot, sipping coffee like I wasn't the same girl they'd laughed at 12 hours ago. Noah was in the kitchen, dressed down in joggers, pouring us both coffee like it was a quiet Sunday. You're not going to call them? He asked. They didn't call me the last 5 years when I needed them, I said. They can wait. He nodded. Good. But something in me was already turning, calculating. That dinner was just a glimpse. Now they knew who I was with. They'd start circling. I knew my family better than anyone. They'd try to play nice, invite me to things, act like they always respected me. I had no intention of letting them rewrite the story, but I wasn't going to start a fight either. I was going to let the truth humiliate them. That afternoon, I got a text from Lauren. Hey girl, I hope I didn't say anything weird last night. You looked amazing. Hope we can catch up sometime. I stared at the message for a second and laughed under my breath. Noah peeked at my screen. Friendly all of a sudden, huh? Predictable, I muttered. Over the next 2 days, the messages rolled in. Aunt Janice wanted to invite me to a charity event. My mother sent a forwarded invitation to a family brunch next weekend saying, We'd love to see you again. You're always welcome, sweetheart. I hadn't heard her call me sweetheart since I was 17. And then came the call I didn't expect. Dad. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up. Hello? I said coolly. He hesitated. Natalie, I was hoping we could talk. In person. You never liked talking before. He sighed. Things change. No, I changed. A beat of silence. I know I haven't been supportive. But I think we got off on the wrong foot the other night. I almost laughed. You think insulting your daughter in front of strangers was just a bad start? He cleared his throat. I'm trying here. I let the silence stretch, then said, You want to meet? Fine, but we do it my way. Neutral place. No house, no family. All right, he said. Where? I gave him the name of a quiet little rooftop cafe downtown. Not fancy, not loud, just somewhere I felt in control. Noah offered to come with me. I said no. I needed to face this one alone. When I arrived, Dad was already seated, looking stiff and uncomfortable in a suit too formal for the place. He stood when he saw me, but I didn't offer a hug. Thanks for meeting me, he said. I'm curious why you asked. He looked away for a second, then back at me. Your boyfriend, Mr. Reed. I didn't know you were involved with someone like that. I tilted my head. Would it have changed how you treated me? I didn't mean it like that. You meant exactly like that. He sighed and looked down at the table. Look, Natalie, I know we've had our differences, but the family, they're talking. People are impressed. They want to reconnect. I leaned forward, slowly, calmly. Are you here because you care about me, or because suddenly I'm a good look for the family? He blinked. Because I don't remember a single call when I was working doubles to cover my rent. I don't remember support when I left school because I couldn't afford it after Mom cut me off. I don't remember you showing up for me, only for appearances. He looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. I'm not angry, I said. Not anymore. I'm done. So, that's it? He asked, voice shaking slightly. Number this is it, I said, pulling a small envelope from my bag and sliding it across the table. He hesitated. What's this? An invitation to the Reed Foundation Gala, black tie, this Friday. Noah and I will be hosting. I'm the keynote speaker. His face went blank. You're welcome to attend, or not, but I'm not asking for your approval anymore. I've built my own place at the table, one you can't pull out from under me. I stood up, adjusted my coat, and looked him in the eye. I'm not just the waitress anymore. Then I walked away. The night of the gala came faster than I expected. The ballroom glowed in soft gold lighting. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the skyline. Waiters floated across the room with trays of champagne, the air filled with soft jazz and quiet murmurs of high-powered conversations. And I stood in the center of it all, wearing a black velvet gown, minimal jewelry, confidence as my only real accessory. Noah stepped beside me, fixing my hair gently behind my ear. "You're ready?" he asked. I nodded, but my fingers were tense around my clutch. "Just remember," he whispered, "you don't owe them anything." The Reed Foundation Gala was more than just a fundraiser. It was the event that drew media, CEOs, politicians, and tech giants. That's why I knew when my family entered, it wouldn't just be for support. It'd be for show. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, I saw them. My parents, Ethan, Lauren, even Aunt Janice. They walked in like they'd always belonged, but they didn't look at me the way they used to. This time, they looked nervous. Ethan was the first to approach. "Natalie," he said with a tight smile, "you look different." I tilted my head. "You mean like I'm not balancing trays of martinis?" He forced a chuckle. "Yeah, something like that." Mom stepped in. "We're proud of you, sweetheart." I blinked slowly. "Since when?" She flinched at that. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scowl. I smiled. "Thank you for coming," I said. "Hope you enjoy the evening." Then I walked away before they could respond. Later, as I stood at the podium, cameras flashing, a sea of powerful people watching, I took a breath. "My name is Natalie Vaughn," I began. "I'm not the daughter of a dynasty. I wasn't handed a business or a title. I started with a name tag and a $7.25 hourly wage, a few chuckles. But that job taught me everything I needed to know about people, about dignity, and about power. And eventually, someone saw me. Not for what I did, but for who I was. That changed everything." I looked directly at my family. I'm not here tonight because I married into wealth. I'm here because I fought for myself when no one else would. The room applauded. Loud. Real. My mother dabbed her eye with a napkin. Dad couldn't even look at me. And Ethan, he looked small. After the event, I stepped out to the terrace alone. Noah joined me a few minutes later. "You did it," he said softly. "No," I whispered. "I became it." He smiled. "I don't hate them," I admitted. "I just don't need them anymore. That's real power," he said. And that moment felt like closure. Not because they finally saw me, but because I no longer needed to be seen by them. A week passed. No calls, no texts, nothing from my family after the gala. I expected that. They weren't angry. They were embarrassed. Because for once they couldn't rewrite the ending. They had to live with it. One afternoon, I was back at the same cafe where I met Dad days earlier. Except this time, I was sipping coffee with someone else. Vanessa, my old friend from the diner. She looked at me across the table wide-eyed. "So you're telling me, your mom actually said, she thinks she's one of us?" I nodded, sipping my drink. Right in front of everyone. And then Noah rolled up in a limo like some Netflix movie ending? Pretty much. Vanessa whistled. Girl, I wish I had that kind of karma. I laughed. It's not karma, it's clarity. I stopped waiting for their love and gave it to myself instead. That night I went home to Noah's place. Or, our place now. He greeted me with that same warm smile and kiss to the forehead. No stage, no audience. Just real care. We sat together on the couch, legs tangled as we watched the city lights glow below. He turned toward me. You ever think about going back? I shook my head. I don't miss them. I miss the version of them I used to hope for. You still holding on to any part of that girl who used to sit silently at their table? No, I said. She's gone. He smiled. Good. Just then, a letter slid through the door. I stood and picked it up. From Ethan Vaughn. I opened it slowly. Nat, I don't know what to say. I've been awful to you. I thought I was better than you, just because I had a title and you had a name tag. But now I realize, you were working while I was coasting. You were building while I was bragging. I know it's probably too late, but if you ever decide to forgive me, I'll be here. No pressure, no pride, just your brother, finally seeing clearly. I folded the letter and sat beside Noah. Everything okay? He asked. Yeah, I whispered. It's finally over. But the truth was, it wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about revenge either. It was about freedom. For years, I sat quietly while they defined me. Now I define me. I'm not just the girl they mocked at dinner. I'm the woman they'll remember for the rest of their lives. Not because I hurt them, but because I didn't let them break me.